Good morning and welcome everyone to the Apereo Teaching and Learning Call. Today's June 15th and we have Marcella Oliviero and Andrea Zoke with us today, who are going to be our main presenters. They're going to be going through their presentation for their Atlas Award winning presentation on Teach So You'll Learn, and I didn't include the complete title, but this is with Xerte. And many of us who are at the Open Apereo conference in New York are familiar with Xerte, and some of us have seen it. Not all of us have used it, so we're all very curious about it. Before we launch into that presentation, and just want to say welcome to both Marcella and Andrea. Thank you for agreeing to be here and present for us.
Thank you, Tarisha.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before we launch into their presentation, I wanted to let us give updates on projects or any other announcements that might be timely. So does anyone?
Well, this is Neil. I sent an email yesterday on the update of Sakai 11 status. Would you like me to repeat that, or?
Yeah, for the recording, I guess that would be great.
Okay. So we are at an RCO1, our first release candidate, and we're planning to get an RCO2 out, fixing some blocker priority issues by next Tuesday, and let me see. So, kind of the things we're missing hopefully we'll meet that milestone, because we have some known blocker priority issues that still need addressing. I'm not going to get into all the detail in the email, because if you saw it, it's a pretty long email. But the high level is that if we can meet that goal by next Tuesday, then we'll get an RCO2. We know we'll still need an RCO3, because we need to implement. The community is deciding on what properties to turn on by default in 11 out of the box, and we have not finished the help documentation yet. So the help documentation will be ready for RCO3, it looks like, but not in time for an RCO2. And that would kind of push our timeline out to, and that's the online help documentation in Sakai, that when you click on a question mark, that comes up. Obviously for Sakai 11, the whole thing has changed, the look has changed everywhere, so it's a huge job. And so kind of pushing that schedule out, it looks like if we got an RCO3, got the RCO2 out next week, and then had time for any last second blocker priority bugs, had a chance to get in the help documentation, had a chance to work on the properties, then we could do an RCO3 maybe the week after, and we'd be looking at maybe the first week in July for that. Of course, there's July 4th holidays and other things that can happen, but that's the rough schedule. And RCO3, hopefully by that point, we would have addressed all the blocker issues, got in the help documentation in, got in property set, and then we could release. And I guess kind of related to that, one of the things that the marketing, Sakai marketing group has been discussing is having a celebration for that release. So, and we haven't started planning on that yet, but the idea would be that maybe people at different institutions, you could get some Sakai gear, Sakai caps, or Sakai shirts, and wear them and snap yourself on Twitter, and maybe have a little celebration, and we could have maybe a global virtual celebration when that happens, because it's a pretty big deal. Sakai Gear. So Dr. Chuck has set up a Land's End. Some of you may already have Sakai Gear from previous, Sakai events, so you could always use that. Some people have Sakai virtual conference t-shirts. Some people have Sakai Gear shirts from previous conferences, or Sakai shirts, so you could always wear that. But I will paste in the link from Dr. Chuck went to Land's End, and he set up an Apereo store where you can get shirts or caps, whatever you want. Of course, you have to pay for them, but then you can add the logo onto them, and you can add a Sakai logo on, or I think he has Sugi logo set up. I think he has a Apereo logo set up. So I will dig up that link from Dr. Chuck Severance and include it in the meeting minutes. So that's pretty much the summary. I mean, like I said, without getting into a lot of detail, if anyone has any questions on the email, I'm happy to take it. Otherwise, I think that would be about it.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted and I was talking to you, but thank you for those updates. And oh, thanks also for the link. What is that link? Is that, Terry? That's a Google link for Sakai Gear? Okay. Oh, that's just to the announcement in. Great. Yeah, perfect. Right, and schools can set their school colors on the Sakai logo or any of those logos, I guess, and
Yep.
So you can really personalize it.
Yeah, you can go crazy with the colors.
Yeah, so it should be fun, and we hope all of you will participate in that. That would be great. So, Neil, you've also posted a JIRA of the week on Etherpad. I'm going to also put it in the chat in case people want to jump over there and take a look at that JIRA.
Thanks. Thanks, Tricia. Yeah, I wasn't sure if this is too Sakai specific, but I know that's what we've mostly been doing in terms of JIRAs. But I guess it's up. So, yeah, this is one where I was having a discussion with a community member because what Neelam is suggesting is a bug to me looks like an expected behavior. So I thought, well, maybe I don't understand what's going on here. So.
So it looks like, so there's merged announcements from one site into another, I'm assuming, and a private announcement from the originating site is visible to users who shouldn't have access to it because it's private in the new site. Is that, so yeah, there's two sites, okay.
Right, and my thinking, to me, it's like if you're merging it into a new site, then the students in that site should have access by default. And it sounds like Neelam's saying, well, no, because they should only have access to the announcement that's been made public. But the one that's private, then they shouldn't have access to it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's very confusing, right? Like, why would you merge in an announcement that then you cannot have access to in the site, into that site, unless they just sort of all come over together and you don't have a choice. But even then, to me, it just seems really confusing. So.
Mm-hmm. I can see his perspective. I can certainly understand that, expecting it to have the same settings on the one hand, but also I can also see your perspective on that. And honestly, I don't know how that works in Sakai 10. Does anybody else off the top of your heads know if that behavior is the same in Sakai 10 or does it work differently in Sakai 10?
This is Charles from ISU. We've never really done much with merged announcements, so I'm not sure. I kind of agree with you, Trish. I can kind of see the argument from both sides, and I'm not sure what really should be the default.
What the right behavior is. Great. Well, you know, some of us could certainly take a look at how that behaves in Sakai 10 and comment in the JIRA. And if any of you have opinions about how that should work, then I hope you'll also comment in the JIRA. And Jennifer is asking in the chat, is this a merge or an import? That's a good question because it doesn't really say. It does say it was a merge, so imports come over as direct to the new site, and I assume that merges would too, but honestly, I don't know. I just haven't used that feature enough to really be familiar with how it works.
It says that, on the JIRA, Neelam says that in Sakai 10 it behaves the same way as 11, so that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even read all the comments. So.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
making me think that that's really the intended behavior. Like, I can see his point too, but although, like I said, to me, it would be really complicated to me, but, you know.
Yeah. Yes. And well, and so it also begs the question that Jennifer was getting to, as to whether these announcements are in draft form when they're merged, like they are when they're imported. And if so, that's your opportunity to fix the settings anyway. And yeah, I'd be curious to know what the use cases, merging announcements. I guess in a course site, you might have announcements that you would repeat, and but if you had a private announcement, honestly, I just don't know how that should behave, but given that it behaves the same way in 11 as in 10, I'm not sure it's a bug. It might be a feature request to change the behavior.
Right, but then if it's a feature request, if people who designed it made it that way intentionally, then you're sort of surprising those people, So it just seems like there's no perfect answer. It's kind of based on a small sample of people on this call. It doesn't sound like a ton of people are using it, and probably for good reason, that you can always copy and paste and create a new announcement and make sure you know exactly who it's going to, and avoid the confusion of how you think it might behave.
Right.
Just as a point of information, if you, at least in version 10, if you merge announcements, they do not come in as draft, they come in as posted.
Oh, okay. So that's also a difference. Interesting. And I assume, a private announcement could be private to a group. And I assume that's what this is. So it's a group scoped announcement, and that group probably doesn't exist in the new site. There's a lot of nuances to this. I just don't know what the answer is. So I would say if it behaves that way in 10, then any change to that would be a feature request, and it would have to be vetted. Or, somebody would have to really care about it and assume that responsibility for making that change.
Okay, thanks. I mean, if anyone wants to put a comment on it, then feel free to. If nobody does, I will put a comment that I brought it up on the teaching and learning group, and that it wasn't, what I would say is it's not totally clear what the behavior should be, but since it works that way in 10, maybe it should be a feature request, but since it, might actually be how it was designed, that it might require a little more, community vetting before even looking into that feature.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting question. Yeah, thank you. So we are ready to move to our main presenters and topic on teaching with Xerte. So Marcella and Andrea, we are delighted to welcome you and invite you to go ahead and begin your presentation for us.
Thank you, Trisha. This is Andrea here. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. It's a very wet afternoon here in Bristol in England, so you're not missing much. Anyway, let's move on to our presentation. As you already said, we deal with Xerte, so this is something different from what I imagine the majority of you are familiar with. I'll be speaking mainly on the background and the rationale in terms of pedagogy about our project, and then I shall hand over to Marcella, who will speak more in detail about Xerte itself, its tools, and how she has used it for our project. So we used Xerte for a peer teaching project where we wanted to address some problems we had with our students coming to study Italian language at the University of Bristol, already having studied it before. So the grammar component of the course, which is an hour out of the 3 hours of tuition that they get with us, used to be taught in a fairly traditional way, and this didn't really engage the students. We have classes of relatively small classes of about 18, 20 students. They used to feel that they already knew quite a bit. They didn't want to go through a very gradual traditional approach, and so we had to come up with a solution. And we thought that two ingredients would possibly solve our problem. One, having them teach to each other, and the other was supporting this with technology. So, and Xerte was the product of choice. In terms of the peer teaching, this is nothing new pedagogically, but it was new to us, and it was pretty radical in terms of our general approach to teaching and learning. What we were hoping was that the students, by teaching each other, would become much more engaged with the process, have a more central role. So instead of just talking about student-centered learning, we really wanted to go for it. In terms of the practicalities, we were also comforted by the fact that we would have local support for the particular product, which we would use in order to deliver this peer teaching with technology. So if we go to the next slide, this is just as a reminder, really, that the role of technology in our project would not be a simple sort of gimmick, if you like, where students would learn just the same, but just using technology. We really wanted to make it integral and a sort of a necessary part of the learning process.
Yeah.
So I shall hand over to Marcella now.
Yeah, at the same time, we don't really want technology to replace the old traditional teaching style. So we don't want technology to implant knowledge into our student brains, but we want to create a sharing environment in which technology, the tutor and student collaborate, help each other, inspire each other, and give inputs. And the product we choose, as Andrea has already said, is Xerte. Why we choose it? For several reasons. First of all, it can be embedded in our BLE, which is Blackboard, and this facilitate independent studies as well as accessibility, because our student can access the tutorials and at any time from any computer station. Also is a very strong authoring tool. Xerte allows you to create tutorials. You can fill with text, exercise, teaching activities. You can include pictures, audiovisual materials, videos, and is very interactive, so that this help facilitate, improve our student motivations and also our student engagement. Yeah, it provides you with different kind of page types so that you can create different kind of activities such as gap fills, drag and drop, quizzes, and also multiple choice exercises. And some of those page types allows you to provide some feedback. So our student can always have a written answer response to the answers. This is a very engaging and dynamic and interactive learning opportunities. Our students feel they actively participate in the classes, both as teachers and as learners. Last but not least, is supported locally by our university. Moving on to the work stream in more details, as you can see, this project is structured in several interlinked phases. First of all, our students receive 2 IT training sessions at the beginning of each teaching block in order for them to learn how to use the software. Then students are split in groups. Each group is assigned a topic and a date for the delivery of the lesson is set. A student can access this schedule at the beginning of the teaching block, so they exactly know when they are they have to perform and they have to teach their class. Before the delivery of the lesson, students meet the tutor twice. In the first meeting, the tutor explains what what the tutor is expecting them to do, so what they are asked to do, so how to structure the lesson in a coherent way, which kind of activities or exercises can suit well that specific lesson, that specific topic. In the second meeting, student and teacher check the work student has produced, so the final tutorial, and also the tutor provide them with some presentation and teaching advice. Then they teach a 50-minute lesson, and at the end of this lesson, they receive a final feedback on their performance. In this page, you can see some examples of the work produced by our students. Well, this page is mainly about the schedule. Basically, the tutor provide them with a work plan in order to help them to structure to help them on how they can work together, what they can do before the first meeting with the tutor, during the meeting, after the first meeting, because obviously student in year one needs some help. They need to be a little bit lead or anyway helped. Then in here you can see the schedule. So the schedule the student access at the beginning of each teaching block. So the groups, the topics, and also the date of the meeting with the tutor. And here are some examples of work produced. I need to say that in the last couple of years, we have used an old version of Xerte, but we are going to use the latest version, 3.2, in September. So the layout is a little bit different. So in this, but still you can see the results. So our student creativity, for instance, the picture they choose, the use of the colors, how to highlight some words which are more important in this text, for instance, also the use of the emoticon. And then in this page, you can see an example of drag and drop exercise. So as students are asked to drag each word in the right box. Here, some example of grammar explanation. This is an example of multiple choice question. So this is a quiz, and also you can see our student feedback on that exercise. This is an example of YouTube video. Actually, our students film themselves in this video, and they also create an activity related to the video. This is a drag and drop activity, but in the next page we can see again a drag and drop, but can also be a gap fill activity. And yeah, in this exercise, students can listen to a radio program, and they can read a text, and they need to find the mistake in this text. They are allowed to write the correct text in the second box, as you can see, and also they can also read. They can check the correct test just by clicking on the feedback button.
So yes, in answer to Terry's question, the whole purpose of the approach is to have students as creators as well as tutors with their peers. So that's the big challenge that the students have in our approach, is that they both have to obviously learn the specific curriculum, which is a grammatical one in this case, but they also have to familiarize themselves with the technology and deliver part of the course. So they're only delivering 2 units during the whole academic session, but they do that as a group creating, authoring a tutorial with Xerte, and then delivering it in class to their peers. So Marcella,
yeah, this is another example. Yeah, this is a different kind of page type. In this example, in this sample, you can see what students did. So they choose this picture. There is a mistake in this picture. They wanted the other classmate to read the text and to find the mistake, and then just by clicking on the next button they could find out the answer and also the explanation. So Xerte gives you the opportunity of create different kind of activity in different ways. In the following page you can also see Xerte allows you also to include PowerPoint slides or also Prezi. So our student, for instance, in this tutorial chose to provide a grammar explanation using Prezi, and they could embed it into Xerte. Well, in this case, we were using Google Doc because part of this project include also a video component. Our students are asked to create a video in which they film themselves. And I asked them to share a Google Doc in order to write the script of the video. This for several reasons, yeah, because I obviously I wanted to check that there were no mistakes in the video, but also because this encourage the group activity and collaboration. And also we use Facebook. This is another tool that we use in order to encourage collaboration and make this community even higher and stronger. Yeah, this is just an example of the video produced by our student. Yeah.
Okay, so to kind of wrap it up and go back a little bit on the pedagogic implications of our approach, I would like to say something a little bit, some of the changes. And these are identity changes that happen as a result of embracing this kind of teaching and learning model. So students change their identity because, as well as having their traditional and obvious identity as learners, as students, they are also becoming teachers. So they are student teachers. And as I sort of mentioned at the beginning, this gives them more ownership of the whole process, and also it changes their perspective. So by teaching, they also becoming more aware and appreciate differently and better, hopefully, what is behind what we do as tutors and what really is necessary to engage their peers. The collaborative nature of the project is very strong, and it was one of the principles really that we wanted to be central in our project. So they collaborate, they do group work, and this implies a lot of soft skills as well as hard skills. Obviously, the IT skills, Marcella mentioned before, are being catered for by specific dedicated sessions, but they also need to negotiate with each other, to mediate, to plan, And we provide, in fact, Marcella, as the course tutor, provides a lot of support in that respect. But this has, I think, it adds value with regard to a more traditional university sort of teaching scenario. Also, presentation and teaching skills per se are acquired, although we are obviously aware that they are not skilled and qualified tutors, so they are still students, and they receive a lot of guidance, especially in terms of what we expect them to do as teachers.
Yes, students teach face-to-face. And in terms of assessment, we need to say that our students receive some feedback, but they don't receive a mark on this work. This is part of our course, but the way they are assessed is at the end of the year through a grammar course. So it's mainly based on their learning, what they have learned.
Yes, this is not a teaching unit, so they are not, which we do actually here in later years, where students actually are taught to teach. But here they are not. It's just a different way of learning.
Yeah, Xerte is not only a presentation software you can use for presentations, but Xerte allows you to create activities. So what I was showing before were just some samples of activity you can create. You can create gap fill, exercise, multiple choice, matching text, and yeah, they are interactive activity. You can create interactive activities.
The good thing is that these become, yes, they do become learning objects, if you want to use that kind of definition, and they can be reused, as we said earlier. They can be put in a repository, and they can be accessed by the stakeholders directly, but also by other students, students who are learning, for example, Italian from scratch at our institution, can also access these tutorials. And the fact that they've been created by their peers adds a little bit of a frisson, if you like. You know, students are more curious to see what actually has been produced by their colleagues.
Yeah.
So students stay obviously as students, but they keep they have a strongest sense of a shared experience. There is a sense of responsibility as well to your peers by delivering something to them and being judged upon it. So that's also something that changes as a result of this approach.
Yeah, just answering last question. Students meet the tutor twice before the delivery of the lesson. The tutor gives them some instructions on how to plan and how to structure the lesson, because obviously they have never done it before, and obviously they are guided by the tutor. And in terms of lesson structure, but also activities and exercises they can produce. And so yes, they have a kind of rubric.
It's not just the students, though, who whose identity changes as a result. We also change in this approach. And so instead of being the usual sort of frontal or broadcasting role, being in front of a class, and monodirectional, so where I speak and I teach and students listen to me, there is a flipping of the process, and so students become teachers as well, and we become less obviously central. We are still central, I think, but it's a pluricentrality, if you like, because obviously Marcella, as the tutor in question, does a lot of work behind the scenes, but the question of authority is more nuanced, and so there is a sense of if you like, more democracy in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
as a result, and that increases a sense of responsibility as well.
And obviously there is a very strong sense of collaboration because students becomes leaders in this new environment, and but still the tutor is the person who has to inspire them to some extent, to motivate them, also needs to facilitate the learning experience and monitor the work, because we need to make sure that the quality of the work produced is high, because anyway we are responsible, students are responsible from their classmates of their classmates learning, but also we are responsible of that, and provides feedback.
In terms of, sorry, just looking at the last couple of questions, these are not education students, these are language students. They're doing a degree in Italian, generally with another language, so they are not interested in education, actually. They're not necessarily interested in teaching. We do offer teaching courses later on for those students who are interested in taking on a teaching career. But this is different. This is actually part of teaching the grammar through the medium of peer teaching. So no. And as far as recognizing the quality of their teaching is concerned, this is a good question. We do not at the moment provide a mark which is summative for this, so it's simply formative. It's part of a learning curve, if you like. We do not find that they are less engaged with it because they do not get a mark for it. I think it will probably pose more problems and solve them if we were to provide a mark for something that they are so unfamiliar with. And so I think the fact that they actually go with it and embrace it quite a bit is because they know that ultimately it does not affect their unit mark at the end of the year.
And also we want to emphasize on the fact that they gain new skills, they develop the IT skills, which are very important in our society, based on technology, and also they improve their presentation skills. Some of them have already done presentation at school, and they get new skills as teaching skills, which can be important in the future if they want to get this kind of career.
So just to sort of conclude our presentations, and then I think we can answer some of the more specific questions or comments. So maybe we can take them in a little while. From our point of view, the strengths of this approach is that it creates a different commitment to grammar. It improves the variety of the course. They also study grammar much more in depth than they would normally, because they have then to teach it. So they are much more actively participating in the process. And also it increases their independent study skills, which is something that we struggle in the first year in the transition from secondary school to university.
The main weaknesses are related to some IT issues that we experience with the software, but that hopefully will be sorted as soon as we start using the latest version 3.2, which has an easier layout and is also easier to format text and embed pictures and so on. Another issue is related to deadline, because some of our students do not always meet them, and obviously this makes the tutor work a little bit more difficult. Sometimes the tutor has to chase them, and some other issues are related to the teaching and presentation skills, because our students, most of them have never done an experience like this before, especially in the first teaching block. They are a little bit shy because they don't know each other, but in the second teaching block they feel much more confident confident, and the performance is better. And this is also because they realize the reason why we want them to do this work. Yeah, well, in this case, I don't know if we have time to show them the video, but at the very beginning of the chat, you can see there is a video. You can probably watch it even after. And it's very interesting because it's our student feedback on this project. So I really welcome you to...
Okay, so I don't know how we want to go about, if you want to watch the video now, or I'm not sure. The slides basically are, sorry, just to finish, are a summary of some comments, some positive and negative comments. But the video really has some students actually talking about their experience and answering some of our questions.
I can paste the link again.
Okay.
So that...
Yeah, and I think I'll try to go ahead and just share the video and in the session and see if that's going to work or not.
Okay.
So I think that would be really interesting. I hope others are okay with that. So let me get that link open first. Oops, hold on. Wait for me. All right, let me share that. And allow a couple of things. Oh, here we go. Finally, I'm gonna run. Okay, so it says I'm now sharing my true. Can you guys see anything? 5.5 minutes. Yeah. Not yet. Okay.
Yes, we can still see the slides from the presentation at the moment.
You can still see the slides. Okay, so it might not work out. That's unfortunate. Okay, so maybe the slides and the desktop sharing don't.
Okay.
We can hear
wait.
sound on the video earlier, so I don't know.
Well, as long as you all can watch it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if we don't watch it, if we are not able to watch it now. Okay,
I'm sorry that didn't work out, but yeah, I definitely am going to go after we're done. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
I can probably answer Charles' question, and no, I didn't find a student come out with exercise or activity more difficult than I was expecting. But what I really noticed and I was very happy with was the creativity. This is a chance because obviously the tutor give them some advice, but they have the freedom of choice, for instance, which kind of activities or exercise they want to produce. And I was very happy with some of the activity they created, the quality of the video, the quality of the exercise, also the use of audiovisual materials, pictures related to that specific topic, that specific role. I want them to think about grammar as a means, something something practical, not just as a theory or something that has to be memorized. So they were very good at thinking about context in which they could apply the specific role and matching it with pictures or other kind of materials.
In terms of a previous question by Charles about the percentage of the course that is taught by the students through student-generated material, basically the majority of the course is taught in such a way. It's just that different students deliver different tutorials. So Marcella teaches a couple of classes.
Yeah, it's about 2 classes in the first teaching block, and 2 in the second. It depends also on the number of students we have each year.
So if you think about, we've got 22 weeks of actual contact time. So 18 weeks are taught by the students, so the overall majority.
Because this circle is repeated also in the second teaching block. So students in groups teach twice.
And yes, Trisha, I think the students do feel freer and more able to experiment by knowing that they are not going to be judged by a mark, with a mark for what they do. I think that is actually something which is true. There are also some negative comments. This is not just sort of a kind of fantastic and idealistic kind of response from our students. We asked them actually in the video, if you watch the video towards the end, we asked them about expectations, and most of the criticism comes from students really not expecting to have to teach when they come to us. They expect, and we will teach them, which is a sensible sort of expectation. They pay a lot of money to come to us, and they do not expect then they will teach each other. But this gradually changes as they progress, and they see how things pan out, and they appreciate that it's not a simple matter of asking them to do our work. So their perception changes, their beliefs change throughout the year, which is very interesting, and they become much more mature by the end of the year than they were at the beginning. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, and also it's true. Most of the comments are related to the use of technology. I need to say that because we have been using the previous version of Xerte, students struggle with it, and because we experience some IT issues. But yeah, what I would like to highlight is the central comment related to how our expectation. Basically, we expect our students to be good with technology just because there is. We all think that they are digital natives, but we need to also consider that not all of them are good or just willing to use technology, and this is something that probably we all should reflect on. And
it is also something to do with the type of students that we get here in Bristol. These students are used to being often, I'll say a charged word, but pampered in school. So this really challenges their perception of how things should happen in the classroom. And technology sometimes is seen as a shortcut, as a kind of cheaper way of dealing with things in teaching, instead of having a tutor actually there for them, telling them what to do, etc. So the reaction doesn't necessarily mean that they are happy with using technology, simply because they've been using it for many, many years, and since they were children. So they might be comfortable with the technology, but they might not be comfortable with technology being used for teaching certain things. So it's interesting. I think we need to do a little bit more work and perhaps find out a little bit more in detail what they really don't like that much. I think in terms of Xerte, the new version will solve many problems because it will become much more intuitive, and so less time will be spent in learning how to author, and more time can be spent on being creative and being more effective as a presenter.
Yeah, so the new version will solve most of our problem, and also students need just to get used to this software. And yeah, so as you can see, our next steps using the latest version 3.2, solve the workload issue, because obviously the tutor needs to follow the student, but we have already sorted this program, providing student with some with some pages of the tutorials, for instance the grammar explanation ones. We want to put more emphasis on presentation skills, so help them to improve their presentations.
So there is a lot of scaffolding going on, obviously, for this. The difficulty is to have a balance where the tutor is not overworked as a result, because although the tutor doesn't actually deliver the lessons, that would be much more cost efficient, if you like, in terms of resources, because it would be something that the tutor obviously knows how to do. Instead, the tutor teaching students how to teach is much more labor intensive. So we need to find ways of streamlining this without dampening their enthusiasm and their creativity, but also giving them very clear instructions that support them and make them effective tutors or presenters of what we do. Yeah. So these are our students, and this is the end of our presentation. So we are very grateful also to our support team, to our collaborators, and we thank you very much for listening to us and for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
And I hope that although it's very specific to teaching a language, this might be of use to a wider constituency of tutors and learning technologists. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both, Andrea and Marcella. This was really great. I got a lot out of it, and I think others did too. There were still a couple of quick questions in the chat.
Sure.
And so let's see. And you guys did a great job of facilitating your own session of keeping track of the questions that came through. So let's see. Have you ever considered allowing students to choose their own format or for teaching a module?
No.
No, because I think they need to be guided. They are not expecting. First of all, when they start the first year, they are not expecting to teach. So for them, it's already something shocking to some extent. Yeah. Some of them are really surprised. And second thing, they really need to be followed and to be told, especially at the very beginning, what they could do.
I think with students who are more experienced and more mature, and you could definitely encourage them to be more creative even in the choice of presentation software, if you like. You can use PowerPoint very effectively as well. We wanted to go with something which has interactivity embedded in itself. So that's why we thought PowerPoint, maybe we started with PowerPoint in the pilot project 3 years ago, but then we thought it's a little bit too repetitive and too obvious. And it's just a matter of using text and perhaps a few images. And yes, you can embed video in PowerPoint as well, etc. But you can do not a lot in terms of activities.
Yeah, exactly. Allows you to create activities and exercises. That's why it's a very good tool for teachers and for students to use. So instead of doing exercises on the course book.
And also in terms of the product life cycle, if you like, it's interesting because when Marcella decided to try out Xerte, I was very skeptical, and I kind of sympathized a little bit with the students because it was not the most intuitive product to use, but they have invested a lot in putting out a new version, etc. And it's very comforting to see locally in our institution that thanks to the efforts of Marcella and the success, and thanks to you guys for recognizing it, this product is now being accepted much more in the institution here. And so it's great to see the interface between using in practice and reflecting about it, and then developing new versions and then using those, etc. So spreading it.
That's fantastic. So really interesting. I've been curious about Xerte, and I haven't talked to anybody before who's actually been using it. So I've really enjoyed your presentation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So in the interest of time, we're going to wrap up our meeting. We have a couple of items to address, and our next meeting is on July 6th, and we're going to have a LAMP presentation, a LAMP collaboration with multiple institutions. Martin Ramsey is going to be presenting that. And I know Neil is in the process of trying to corral folks who have expressed interest in participating in an LTI roundtable and a course development roundtable to schedule those, hopefully sometime in the near future. Neil, any progress on that front?
Yeah, there's progress. I think we have 2 or 3 more people hopefully will respond so we can get the dates.
Great. Fantastic. Any other announcements or comments or questions for our presenters before we adjourn? Well, it looks like we are going to adjourn a little early today. So I thank you all for joining the call today, and especially our presenters, Marcella and Andrea. Again, really enjoyed your presentation, and congratulations on winning this award.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.